from Wallace. And then we've got Alan Kirshner in there, Deo Valente, who is doing his PhD under one of the leading scholars in the field. And so I've got some guys in there that I can bounce stuff off of, and both of them have been very helpful in resources and bibliographies and all sorts of stuff like that. So we were chatting about something that I had just happened to run into while working with the text of the papyri. And that is that P45, my text, in Acts contains, we have Acts 13:48 in P45. And the key disputed term in Acts 13:48, tetagmenoi, P45 doesn't contain it. Not just in the sense that because it's fragmentary, it's in the missing part. No. The author of P45 did not include tetagmenoi. Now, will you find that in the side column of your ESV? No. In fact, you won't find that in the Nestle-Aland 28th edition or the UBS 5th. None of them noted that. You can look it up in accordance, and you can read the P45 module, and it's not there, but I have yet to find. I didn't check CNTTS. I bet CNTTS has it, but I didn't pull it up to look at it. But can an English translation provide an exhaustive textual database to you? No, it would be 4 volumes long, or if it was 1 volume, it would be huge. But the information's there, and if the average Christian is just reading the book, they're going to go, "Oh, this is interesting. There seems to be some variations here." They're going to see that. You don't see that with the Quran. You're not aware of these things, and so it does seem to me that your average Christian has access to more knowledge about the background of his text than the average Muslim does. And that's why this stuff can get as far as it goes.
Muhammad Ali says, no copy differing even in a diacritical point is met with. A manuscript with the slightest variation in text is unknown. And finally, Al-Hajj Jola decided to borrow from Jesus' words. He says, the Quran is fully preserved and not a jot or tittle has been changed or left out. So these are the kinds of typical claims that you'll often find people making, but there's one thing wrong with them: they're not true. If you go to this bookshop in Jordan, which I've been to in Amman, you'll be able to see 24 different versions of the Arabic Quran. I'll put the English terms up there. You can order them online, and they'll be here within a couple of days. Or you could go to Lebanon, and again, there are 13 different Arabic versions.
Is there something weird about a website called easyquranstore.com? I don't know. It's just, Easy Bible Store. I don't know. I guess it's all right. It's just, I don't know. It just struck me as rather strange. I don't know. That's what they call it, Joel Osteen's place. Yeah, I don't think Joel has Easy Bible. Yeah, I don't think they have any Qurans there yet. Give them time.
The Quran that you can buy. These are not English translations. These are Arabic versions. But if you want to save yourself your airfare, you can just come to my table and have a look at my little collection of 17 versions that I've collected. As I've travelled and lived in Muslim countries, gone to Islamic bookshops and said, what versions of the Quran do you have? So how did so many Arabic versions arise? Where did that come from? Well, they didn't come from Muhammad. We have to go back to his time. Muhammad never wrote a Quran, and he never sanctioned a full written version of the Quran. There's 2 reasons for this. Firstly, he couldn't read or write. So he was illiterate. And secondly, he could have received a revelation right up until the moment that he died. So the Quran, in effect, couldn't be completed until he'd breathed his last breath. And as a result, his followers had to wait until he died in 632 to compile a full Quran. There were some verses written on stones and leaves and camel bones. There's one there, Surah Al-Fatiha. And many people memorized some of these verses. But after his death, many of his followers who'd memorized parts of the Quran, or the whole of the Quran, they were called Hufaz, were killed in a battle in Yamana in December 632, and there was a fear that the Quran might be lost. And so the Caliph, Muhammad's successor Abu Bakr, ordered that a Quran be written down in full, and he got Zayd bin Thabit to go around and collect the parts that he could find, get them from people, and write them on a scroll. And this copy was given to Hafsa, to one of Muhammad's wives. But he wasn't the only person who was collecting copies of the Quran. In the Hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari says the Quran was collected in the lifetime of the Prophet by 4 men, and it names them: Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abu al-Darda, Mu'adh bin Jabal, Abu Zayd, and Zayd bin Thabit. And Muhammad had told his followers, there are 4 men that you should learn the Quran from. And he named them Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Salim, Mu'adh, and Ubay bin Ka'b.
Now, we need to note that because, as he's going to note here in a few moments, the primary source of information concerning variants in the consonantal text, not in vowel pointing. Vowel pointing is highly interpretational, as he's going to point out here in a moment. But the primary source, from my reading, in the early Tafsir literature, of variants from the Uthmanic official version come from a man that is mentioned right there in that second hadith, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And his readings constitute the majority of the variants that are noted by the early Tafsir literature. Ubay ibn Ka'b, another very important one as well. So very important to keep these things in mind when we're talking about a controlled text. When we're talking about a text that is controlled by governmental authority. You don't have a freely distributed text here. Then anyone who could control the text at a period of time, very important. Very, very important. One of the fundamental differences in how the New Testament and the Quran were transmitted. Free transmission versus controlled transmission. Been over this before, but just mentioning it again.
There's also some of the same people who were collecting the Quran in the lifetime of the Prophet.
Now, you see, I mentioned something. I just happened now to look down at the channel, and Garrett the Geek confirmed for me that CNTTS lists tetragrammaton in brackets in P45. So there you go.